Live on national television, Jasmine Crockett dropped a political bomb. A shocking connection. Trump, Melania, and foreign donors, all laid bare in under 17 minutes. And across from her, Karoline Leavitt sat frozen. What began as a tightly scripted segment on campaign finance reform quickly veered into uncharted territory, past the talking points, beyond the rehearsed jabs. The smiles faded first, then came the shift. Jasmine adjusted her mic, glanced at the host, leaned in. "I find it interesting," she began, voice calm, colder than usual, "that we're here discussing campaign finance reform, but no one wants to mention the donor money tied to the 2022 Mar-a-Lago gala, or how $500,000 was funneled through a foreign shell company to that event, an event personally hosted by Melania Trump." Silence. Not TV silence. Real silence. The kind that drops like a weight across a studio. The kind that makes everyone, audience, crew, panel, instinctively hold their breath. Karoline blinked. Once, then again. Her lips parted, but no words came. The host, voice smooth but unsure, broke the tension. "Do you want to repeat that?" Jasmine didn't blink. "The money was traced to a Beijing-linked holding group, Sable Bay Consulting. Their executive board attended that same gala. 2 aren't U.S. citizens. One's under investigation in Europe for laundering. Now the entire building was still. Even the control room, the heartbeat of any live broadcast, froze. The cameraman, veteran of 1,000 segments, slowly zoomed in, instinctively. Across the table, Karoline finally found her voice, tight, clipped, defensive. "That's a reckless accusation," Jasmine arched a brow. "Is it reckless if I have the documents? Signed by a Trump legal aid authorizing those payments? Or is it just inconvenient?" A beat passed. Karoline's composure cracked. Her chin dipped slightly. Fingers fumbled. With the pen she hadn't touched all show. Her eyes darted, searching for something that wasn't there. The host cleared his throat, grasping for control. "All right, let's try to stay on topic." "I am on topic," Jasmine cut in. "This is campaign finance. This is what it looks like when billionaires use backdoor channels to buy influence. And no one talks about it because the names are too big, too protected." Karoline found her voice again, but the edge was gone. "None of that's verified. You're just throwing bombs without proof." Jasmine was ready. "Then ask your team why your own press secretary flagged this 2 months ago. Ask why they've been quietly deleting tweets about that gala." The host tried to pivot, but it was too late. The moment had already escaped containment. Viewers weren't listening to policy anymore. They were reading body language, watching the unraveling unfold in real time. 10 minutes after airtime, Twitter lit up. Crockett goes nuclear. Leave it silenced. Campaign finance bombshell clips circulated at warp speed. Freeze frames of Karoline's stunned expression were already being compared to infamous political meltdowns from decades past. Because it wasn't just what Jasmine said. It was how real it felt. No handlers, no earpieces. Just 2 people at a table? One with the truth, the other caught off guard. But that moment wasn't spontaneous. It was built, layer by layer. 3 nights earlier, Jasmine had been alone in her small D.C. office. The halls were dark, staff gone, her jacket off, sleeves rolled, eyes locked on a folder. A man had handed it to her. No name, just credentials, a clipboard, and one warning. "You didn't get this from me." She never asked how he got past security. That would come later, Now, all that mattered was what was in her hands. Paper. Real paper. The kind of evidence politicians spend careers avoiding. Not just one memo. Not just a bank slip. A full timeline. It tracked over $2 million in donations, routed through obscure LLCs. No real business activity. No employees. No product. One was an antique rug wholesaler in Nevada. Another, a defunct juice company in Sarasota that hadn't filed taxes in 7 years. Every one of them transferred funds just days before a Mar-a-Lago fundraiser, an event hosted not by a PAC or campaign, but by Melania Trump herself. 2 men, foreign nationals. Their names rang a bell, because Jasmine had seen them before, not in headlines, in classified briefings, names flagged on intelligence, watch lists, and now, here they were, listed as guests at a Mar-a-Lago fundraiser. The worst part? It was clean, too clean, layered in just enough legality to skate past oversight, the kind of corruption that hides behind paperwork and silence. Jasmine pushed her chair back, walked to the window. The street below moved like any other night in D.C. Cars, lights, people pretending everything was normal. But nothing felt normal. She didn't feel powerful. She felt boxed in. Like if she moved too fast, it would all detonate. And if she moved too slow, it would vanish. Her phone buzzed. Kendra, her chief of staff, still at the office, already guessing the truth. "I thought you were taking tonight off," Kendra said. "I was," Jasmine answered, eyes drifting back to the folder. Something came up. A beat. "Is this about the thing we're not supposed to touch?" Silence. Then, "It's bigger than we thought," Jasmine said. "If I'm right, it's going to rattle more than just cages." "You thinking of going public?" Long pause. "I'm on that panel with Leavitt Thursday," Jasmine said slowly. "I might say something." The line crackled with tension. "Jazz, if you say this on air, it's going to land like a hammer. We're not poking the bear. We're dragging it into daylight. Are you sure?" But Jasmine had already decided. "They don't expect people like me to say it on camera," she replied. "I've had enough of that." She hung up, walked back to the desk, flipped to the last few pages. It wasn't Trump's signature, not Melania's either. It was someone else, someone connected. A name that surfaced in the news 2 years ago, then disappeared. That's what churned her stomach. Not the money, not even the names. The silence. The way something so bold could stay hidden because no one wanted to be the first to speak. She didn't sleep that night, didn't rehearse, didn't brief her team, didn't ask for a fact check, because she knew if she did, someone might try to stop her. Once that folder hit her desk, silence stopped being an option. Thursday morning, Sacramento, cloudless, mild, nothing remarkable, on the surface. But inside the studio, the air was electric, not from any one incident. It was just live TV. That kind of tension you don't talk about, but feel the second you pass the makeup chair. Jasmine arrived alone, no entourage, no publicist trailing her with updates. Just her. A black notebook, tucked under her arm, and a coffee she barely touched. Across the green room, Karoline Leavitt sat flawless in a cream blazer, earbuds in, nodding as her comms director whispered through the wire. She looked up once as Jasmine walked in. No words, just a flicker of recognition, then back to scrolling. The host, Barry Klein, was a veteran, 20 years of panels, blow-ups, and backroom spin. Nothing rattled him. He greeted both women with a dry grin. "Ladies, 3 minutes. Same. Format. Openers, back and forth, closers. Keep it civil. Or at least pretend for the cameras." He winked. Jasmine didn't smile. Behind the scenes, an intern ran audio checks. A floor director barked countdowns. Barry powdered his forehead. Karoline whispered something sharp about democratic hypocrisy on spending. Jasmine stayed quiet, flipping pages in her notebook with slow, deliberate fingers. Nobody asked what she was reading. Claire, the segment producer, leaned in from the wings. "You're good on mic. If you're gonna hit healthcare, do it early. Karoline's coming in hot on that." Jasmine nodded, but her eyes never left the page. She wasn't thinking about healthcare. She was thinking about a photo, one buried in the back of her folder. Handshake between a man from Shenzhen and a former Trump campaign finance official. Taken on the back patio of Mar-a-Lago champagne. Crisp suits, the gold trim of the table catching the sun. No one ever asked who paid for that table. A stagehand signaled, 1 minute. Barry took his seat. Karoline moved like a seasoned player. Slide, smile, posture, locked in as the lights warmed up. Jasmine followed, placed her notebook on the desk, didn't open it. She looked straight into the camera. She wasn't nervous, but she wasn't calm either. She was something else entirely. Ready. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Too late to turn back, but just maybe, if you yelled loud enough, your voice might echo. The director's voice crackled through the earpieces. "And we're live in 5, 4, 3. The theme music faded. Barry launched into the intro. Graphics danced across the screen like every other morning. To the viewers at home, it was routine. Another debate, another split screen, another performance. But behind the scenes, no one knew Jasmine had brought dynamite. Karoline opened first. Sharp, polished, predictable. She hit the budget, hammered border policy, tossed in a jab about the left losing touch with real Americans. Then Barry turned to Jasmine. She smiled, just once. A reflex, not a reaction. Then calmly, "Karoline, you're great at talking about spending. Unless we're talking about laundering private money through political galas." Karoline blinked. The room didn't shift, not right away. But Jasmine felt it. The crack in the surface. A producer dropped her pen. Barry glanced up from his notes. The crew exchanged quick looks behind the glass. The red light stayed on. The mic stayed hot. And Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The words did all the work. Karoline's expression unraveled. Slowly, a flicker of confusion. An aborted interruption. A glance toward Barry, looking for an exit. None came. "Could you clarify that?" Barry asked, trying to sound neutral. His voice betrayed him. Jasmine nodded, measured. "Absolutely. I'm referring to the private fundraising gala held on April 23rd, 2022. Mar-a-Lago. 72 guests, 49 donations processed within 6 days. All just under $250,000. None traceable to legitimate U.S. businesses." Karoline straightened, lips tight. "That's nonsense. There's no credible source for that." "Actually," Jasmine cut in, "your party's own oversight committee opened an internal review last fall. Quietly. You should check your inbox. Or better yet, ask your comms director why staff were told to avoid any mention of foreign-connected contributions. I've seen the memo." Barry's earpiece buzzed. He adjusted his tie, voice tighter now. "We weren't made aware of these. Claims before the broadcast." Jasmine turned to him. "You weren't supposed to be." A hush settled. Not panic, yet. Just the slow, creeping realization that the train had left the tracks. Producer mouthed cut to commercial. Barry didn't move. He knew. They all knew. This moment was already being clipped and posted. DVRs rolling, screenshots uploading. These are unsubstantiated. Borderline slanderous. Karoline snapped. You're throwing out accusations like, it's performance art. Jasmine shrugged. Then sue me. That silence, not awkward. It was heavy, like the pause before thunder. Karoline tried again. You're implying the former president and first lady knowingly participated in illegal campaign finance. I'm not implying anything, Jasmine said coolly. I'm stating what's already signed, sealed, and reviewed by 2 legal analysts who worked for your administration. Barry leaned in. Do you have those documents with you? Jasmine tapped her notebook. I didn't come to wave paper. I came because silence has a cost, and I'm done pretending this kind of money just shows up out of nowhere. Karoline didn't respond. Not right away. Her face was too still. She had 2 choices. Deny it forcefully, or pivot. She did neither, and in that hesitation, everything changed. The live chat beneath the stream exploded. Is this real? She brought receipts. What's Karoline looking for? Her dignity. By the time the segment ended, just 2 minutes later, Jasmine had flipped the script. It was no longer about budgets or borders. It was about corruption. It was about truth. It was about who had the courage to say the quiet part out loud. Barry closed the panel gracefully, thanking both guests, but nobody was listening. The screen faded to commercials, but the internet didn't. Within minutes, clips spread across TikTok, X, and YouTube. A still frame of Karoline, hand half raised, blinking fast, mouth open but silent, was reposted with the caption, When you realize she did her homework. At network headquarters, phones lit up. Producers were yanked into emergency meetings. Editors scrambled, debating whether to air the full segment or slice it down. But it didn't matter. The story was already loose, and no amount of spin was going to put it back in the bottle. Lawyers reviewed the broadcast twice. Jasmine left the studio without waiting for post-show banter. She didn't speak to reporters or wave at the camera. Straight to the black sedan, waiting at the corner. Her notebook was clutched tight, her phone vibrating nonstop. She didn't answer. Not yet. It wasn't just political fallout. It hit personal lives, too. By the time Jasmine kicked off her shoes and dropped her bag, 3 networks had requested follow-up interviews. Her voicemail was full. Texts flooded in, some from reporters she hadn't spoken to in years, others from colleagues she hadn't heard from in months. But it wasn't just the press. Her mother had called twice. Her younger brother texted, You broke the internet. Good luck at Thanksgiving. Even her college roommate from Tallahassee messaged a screenshot of the clip with just the word, Girl. Jasmine sat on the couch, staring at the TV. Every station had her face next to Karoline's. The question on every panel, did Jasmine go too far? Or did she finally say what others were too afraid to? Meanwhile, Karoline's office released a statement, short, dismissive, calling Jasmine's remarks irresponsible and a distraction from her own record. But people weren't buying it. It wasn't just the content. It was the rawness of the exchange. Jasmine didn't flinch. Karoline, known for always having a counter, faltered. The memes flooded in. One showed Karoline in an empty classroom with the caption, When you forget to study and the test is televised. Another had Jasmine in sunglasses walking away from an explosion. Some were ridiculous, some ruthless, but they all pointed to one thing. Something real had happened. While social media debated, the people behind the curtain scrambled. At party, headquarters in Tallahassee, communications directors were on closed-door calls with legal consultants. The finance team combed through donor data, trying to assess if any of Jasmine's claims held weight. Back at the studio, Claire, the lead producer, watched the clip for the 8th time in silence. Barry, the host, leaned in. "You think it's real?" Claire didn't answer. They both knew. It didn't matter if it was real. The audience thought it was. By the next morning, Jasmine's office had received nearly 4,000 emails. Half praise, half attacks, all loud. Kendra, her chief of staff, burst through the door at 8 a.m., coffee in hand. "The networks want comment. Do we confirm you had documents, or keep it vague?" Jasmine, calm, replied, "Let them talk. If they want proof, they'll dig." Kendra continued, "You're being called everything from reckless to a truth-teller. Karoline's people are calling around. They want to know what else you have." Jasmine's response was simple. "Good. Let them wonder." But not everyone was cheering. An older congressman from Louisiana left a voicemail, warning her to tread carefully. A well-known lobbyist hinted donors were nervous. One close colleague texted, "You could have gone through internal channels. Why blow it up like that?" Jasmine replied, "Because those channels are where truth goes to die." She hadn't slept much, but she didn't feel tired. She felt clear. She hadn't dropped that bombshell for fame. She didn't want attention. She knew what silence cost. She'd seen it before. At City Hall, court hearings, community meetings. People whispered what they were too scared to say out loud. Now, the truth was out. Whether it stuck or slipped, away would depend on what people did next. The real storm was still ahead. 3 days later, a freelance investigative journalist named Hector Padilla sat hunched over a folding table in Tucson, Arizona. He hadn't planned on chasing the story, but now he couldn't ignore it. Ever since Jasmine Crockett's clip went viral, something about her calm delivery nagged at Hector. It wasn't the drama he cared about, but the patterns. What Jasmine said aligned too perfectly with a file he'd been building for over a year. It all started with one donation, a $10,000 check from a Las Vegas-based import company that hadn't shipped anything in nearly a decade. Then another, with $195,000 from a car rental service registered to a vacant lot in Phoenix. Neither company had any political history, but both made maximum contributions to a Trump-aligned super PAC. Hector had flagged them before, but editors weren't biting. No hard proof. Until Jasmine mentioned Sable Bay Consulting. He hadn't heard that name in months, but the moment it left her lips, something clicked. He dug deeper and found it tied to a 2022 whistleblower case. Hidden in the documents was Sable Bay, acting as a third-party logistics intermediary for a luxury shipping group in Macau. But there was no product, no inventory, just money. That afternoon, Hector called a former contact in risk compliance at a regional bank in Santa Fe. "I need eyes on transfers between Sable Bay and any political committees from January to June 2022. The voice on the other end hesitated but agreed to send over a sanitized spreadsheet. No client data, but enough to spark a fire. Over a dozen wire transfers, all below regulatory reporting thresholds, sent within 72 hours of private events at Mar-a-Lago. One, just hours before a private dinner, Melania Trump reportedly hosted for international donors. The dates matched Jasmine's timeline. But Hector didn't stop there. He found Arbison Global Logistics linked to the same Macau group, registered in Delaware with a mailbox in a shared office in Dover. A few calls revealed no one knew the company. The deeper he dug, the stranger it got. The same group had donated $60,000 to a nonprofit in South Dakota, an organization with no online presence and a board full of former campaign consultants. It was a messy, complicated trail, but it was real. Schechter knew he had something big. So he reached out to The Ledger Wire, a small risk-taking outlet. Within 24 hours, they published Foreign Shadows, The hidden donor trail. Behind American. Campaign cash. With Jasmine's name in the first paragraph. The article exploded, even picking up coverage from CNN, Reuters, and the Washington Times. Jasmine's claims weren't just viral. They were verified. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt's office went silent. No rebuttals, no statements, just quiet. But Hector wasn't finished. He knew the machine behind the scandal didn't stop. It just changed shape. He wanted more, deeper proof, voices on record. So he booked a flight to Miami to track down a former aide who coordinated Mar-a-Lago's donor invitations. As the media chased the money, something else was happening behind closed doors. For 4 days, Karoline Leavitt remained silent. No public appearances, no social media activity. Inside her office, her staff was on edge. Phones rang, unanswered. No one knew if she was planning to double down or wait for the storm to pass. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, she called a meeting with 5 senior staff members. Karoline walked in wearing a plain gray sweater, no makeup, and stood, folder in hand. "I'm going to speak publicly today," she said. Not a denial, not a counterattack, just clarity. Her campaign manager, Seth, immediately objected. "You speak, and it validates the claims. This will fade." "It's not fading," Karoline replied. "And I'm not going to pretend I didn't see what I saw." An aide jumped in. "You don't need to defend yourself. Jasmine made it personal. It's political theater." Karoline paused. Maybe. It worked because it wasn't theater. What Jasmine said was real. She meant every word of it. "I didn't know how to respond," Seth admitted. "I don't even know what she knows." "No apology," Karoline said calmly. "I'm going to tell the truth. The press conference was scheduled for 3 p.m. Eastern. No major outlets, just local reporters and independent journalists who'd been pressing for comments since the segment aired." Karoline stepped up to the podium alone. "I've taken a few days to think carefully about what was said last week during the broadcast," she began. "After reviewing the documents, now circulating, yes, some of this caught me by surprise." She looked directly into the camera. "I wasn't aware of the depth of financial entanglements linked to that 2022 fundraiser. I wasn't in the room that night. I wasn't part of the planning. But I did defend something I didn't fully understand. And that's on me. No deflection, no shifting blame, just honesty." A few reporters exchanged surprised glances. Karoline continued. "There are systems in place that reward silence. Systems that make it easier to look the other way. I won't pretend I've been brave enough to challenge that before. But I am now." Her words quickly spread across social media. It wasn't an apology. It was a pivot, leaving many wondering what Karoline really knew and what she might say next. Some supporters felt betrayed, while others stood by her. Even critics admitted she had done something rare. She admitted she didn't have all the answers. That evening, Jasmine watched the broadcast in her living room. She wasn't smiling, but there was relief in her eyes. Kendra nudged her shoulder. "You think she's being sincere?" "I don't know," Jasmine said. "But I think she realized this isn't just about party lines. It's about who you are when no one's feeding you lines." Karoline didn't follow up with another press conference. She didn't rush to the cameras. She let her statement breathe. And people noticed. Her approval ratings dipped, then stabilized. Some hardliners backed away, but new voices, independents, first-time voters, even left-leaning critics, began engaging with her again. Not because they agreed, but because they saw something human in her hesitation. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is admit they didn't know. Jasmine knew, though. The truth wasn't done shaking things up. It didn't fade. It evolved. A month later, Jasmine was invited to speak at a town hall in Fresno, California. No cameras, just folding chairs and a small crowd of teachers, truck drivers, retirees, and students. She didn't come with a slideshow or speech, just a story. Most of the time, truth doesn't come with trumpets, she said. It shows up in manila folders handed to you in a hallway by someone with tired eyes and a whispered warning. And when it does, you don't always know what to do with it. All you know is, if you sit on it too long, it burns. She spoke about the silence in rooms where questions go unasked, about emails that go unanswered because no one wants to be the first to address the problem. She talked about how the system, regardless of party, was built to keep things quiet and moving. People listened. No one looked away. This wasn't about politics anymore. It was about courage. Jasmine didn't frame herself as a hero. She hadn't uncovered a massive conspiracy. What she exposed was a pattern that had been hidden behind handshakes and polite dismissals. After her speech, an elderly woman approached her. "My husband used to say the hardest truth to live with is the one you didn't speak when you had the chance." Jasmine nodded, knowing exactly what that felt like. Meanwhile, Hector's reporting continued to make waves. A second article revealed more donor links, this time through an obscure nonprofit in Utah, tied to the 2022 Mar-a-Lago Gala. 2 quiet resignations followed, no press coverage. But Jasmine noticed. Karoline, however, never spoke about the gala again. Her voting patterns shifted, too. She stopped supporting bills that weakened financial oversight of political donations and voted for an amendment that gave the FEC more power. Small changes, but Jasmine saw the difference. Sometimes accountability doesn't roar. It quietly rearranges the furniture. Back in her D.C. office, Jasmine looked at the worn folder that had started it all. She hadn't thrown it away. It wasn't framed either. It sat on a shelf between a copy of the Federalist Papers and a childhood photo of her and her sister on a swing in Dallas. Kendra walked in one afternoon with a stack of mail. "Anything good?" Jasmine asked. "A few letters," Kendra said, handing her a yellow envelope. "Mostly from folks you rattled," Kendra added. Jasmine smirked. "Then I did it right." Inside the envelope was a handwritten note. "You said what I couldn't. You reminded us that silence isn't neutral. It's protection for the wrong people, thank you." No signature, no return address. Just a reminder that once truth is spoken, it never disappears. It ripples, reshapes, and reminds. The lesson was simple. If you're holding the truth, waiting for the perfect moment, it may never come. Say it anyway. The cost of silence is always heavier than the weight of truth. Silence might protect your position, but it won't protect your soul. And if you ever find yourself at a table where no one will name the lie, be the one to speak. If this story moved you, share it. Talk about it. Don't let the silence win. And if you haven't yet, subscribe for more stories that say what others are too afraid to.